if you take a look at the history, D.L. Moody had great education, 6th grade education, and they used to laugh at him because he was so uneducated. The same thing is true in the book of Acts, where the apostles were doing great things, and they noted that they were uneducated men, but they were with Jesus. They had been with Jesus.
Not to worship men, but the wisdom of God they had. And they went forward not knowing what's going to happen to them, but they know they were being led by the Holy Spirit. That's like full gospel. Horrible. But it got in trouble. It started bringing it into the churches, back into the church. God did not want that to go back into the church denomination. He wanted to go to the world. He wanted to go from house to house to house, revival in communities. And it fell because of money, power. There was a big split that came between youth and factors in this whole gospel, fighting for the power of the money. It's always money.
That's like, there's a story of a guy named Pierce. He used to be involved. In fact, he started the Vision, International Vision, World Vision. But somebody once asked Barnhouse, who's a friend of his, why he basically was buddy-buddy with this guy. And Barnhouse said, well, the guy is so theological ignorant that I can't argue with him. That was his answer. He said the guy's so theological ignorant I can't argue with the guy. I mean, he had nobody to argue with. I mean, the guy's not theological enough to do it. So he said that's why he said he's a good friend of his, because he didn't have any knowledge of theological, I mean,
I'm going to have to get along about that. Okay. Yeah, I better reshuffle here. Reshuffle here for some off the line. Yeah. So when do you head to Cedar Rapids? When you go with that? Where you say you're going to Cedar Rapids? Are you moving to Cedar Rapids? No. Oh, I thought you were moving.
First day of 4th grade.
We got 2 boys there.
Okay. I thought you were all the other kids. Oh,
I was going to back up where you were saying. I was going to back up because you were talking about how revival, we think, a lot of times not believing. A lot of times Christians think it has to start, God's going to move across the people that don't believe in Christ, and just there's worldly people that, anyway. James 4 actually talks about what you're saying. He talks about pride and how God resists the proud but gives grace to the humble, humility. And then in 7 he says, therefore submit to God, resist the devil, he will flee from you. Verse 8, draw near to God and he will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and pure your hearts, you double-minded. Verse 9, lament and mourn and weep. Let your laughter be turned to mourning and your joy to gloom. Humble yourselves in the sight of the Lord, and He will lift you up. So I just wanted to
cover that wonderful portion of Scripture. God is a rewarder of them who diligently seek Him.
But they must believe that He is first.
I mean, you got to believe in Him first and believe in His Word.
It's only He honors that sorrow. He looks down upon your hearts that were working. He's number 1.
I have played something. So I only think out the best. We're in trouble.
There has been a thank you.
Very good.
That's just what I thought about. I love James 4. It's actually part of my testimony, so I love James 4. It's like, oh, that's super cool.
Yeah.
You mean we're not to hear only your story?
I tried.
There's been a tremendous amount of stuff going on in the temple. I talked about this last week or the week before that. The 70 temple instruments are made. The priests are in their 3rd year. We talked about this last week.
Red heifer.
Well, they're taking this course studies. And one of you weren't here, but imagine this. I thought, okay, well, it's like how to light the menorah, and how to say the right words. But no. They're taking the mathematics of Ezekiel's temple, but they're taking a course. This year, the priests are taking a course, and it's called Modern Day Technology in the Temple. You think about that. Because in the last days, it says that the beast or the Antichrist will give power to the image to be able to speak. Modern technology in the temple. So this next temple, is going to be equipped with modern technology. And this next temple that's being built, some believe will be actually will be built by the Antichrist. I don't know if that's true or not, but we do know that the Antichrist will declare himself to be God in the middle of the Great Tribulation, halfway through the Great Tribulation, according to Daniel. And
the image will speak.
And the image will speak, which is like a hologram.
Hologram. That's what I'm thinking. Hologram.
You know what they do, but exactly. So they're not like taking candle lighting or whatever. They're taking actually some pretty advanced stuff, and they're in the third year of their studies to be a priest. But everything's all ready, and what they're talking about before they even build the temple, they're going to have a red heifer sacrifice before the temple even gets built, because the red heifer was sacrificed for the sins of Israel. So they want to begin to sacrifice red heifer cattle even before they build the temple. So we are really, really close. They've already made all the garments, all the high priest garments, all the instruments, all 70 instruments, and the plans. They have all the plans. I've said, well, they could throw up like a pole building or a teepee and call it the temple. You have to get all the equipment in. But they could throw up anything. But no, they have a very elaborate plan. It's not. Wow. And there's been clashes on the Temple Mount. The girl got killed. It was part of the Temple Institute family, and there's been a big deal about that. They're sewing the Holy of Holies. There's a village of women dedicated to sewing the temple veil. We're getting really, really close.
Did they have you trying to go up there? Or one of the leaders of Israel went up there and got stoned or killed. Trying to walk up there.
Some politician within Israel. Yeah.
You're thinking of red heifer before the temple. It sounds almost. This is going to be a weird way to say it. It almost sounds like a ribbon cutting ceremony in some ways. Because it would precede the opening of the temple.
But anyhow, as they're digging, I always say one of the neat things about the Bible. Every time somebody digs a shovel full of dirt, they prove the Bible. You can imagine, we would think that you think that maybe. Hi, how you doing? Hello. You would think that maybe. Sure.
I'm gonna go. That's how you walk.
You get your name on it,
You would think that in Israel, that most of Israel has been already dug up. No, just like less than single-digit percentage of Israel, like 3% of Israel has been ever dug up. So there's a lot yet to be found, and destruction of both temples supported by archaeological findings. They're finding more and more evidence of both temples that were destroyed. And last night I was studying the Third Jewish-Roman War, which is 132 to 135, maybe 136, the spring of 136. The Third Jewish War, and it's in the first war. In 67 to 70 AD, they lost the temple. The temple was destroyed. But in 132, 135, they lost their nation. The Romans, in the first war, they lost over 1 million people. In the third war, they lost 500,000. But what they lost was a nation. And that's when the Roman emperor renamed Israel Palestine. It's actually a derivative from the Hadrian. Yeah, it was Hadrian. It was actually it was called Palestine because it's actually a derivative of the Philistine. It means Philistine. So what he did was the Jews destroyed the Philistines. They killed the Philistines. They wiped them out. Eventually, it took them a while, but they eventually wiped out the Philistines. So when Hadrian sacked the country in 135 AD, finished it, he took the residents out, dispersed the Jews. That's the reason why they were dispersed, to fulfill Bible prophecy, that they would come back, but they dispersed them all over the world, and then he changed the name basically to mean Philistine. Gave the land back to the Philistines that were wiped out. Of course, the Romans were still in control.
And later on committed suicide.
Yeah. But finding more and more evidence of both temples, because there's people that some believe that the first temple never existed. The second temple didn't exist. I mean, there's always deniers, But
does that have on there some of the name of the places that have just been discovered, like Goth?
Well, I got that in another one. When Josephus speaks of the 1.1 million deaths as a result of the Great Revolt, this was the one in 70 AD. We learned of the results of the Bar Kokhba revolt from a Roman source, Cassius Dio. So Cassius Dio was a Roman historian that recorded what happened in 132 to 135. He gives us as a number of 580,000 Jews who were killed in battle alone, but doesn't count the civilian population, so it could be even greater than the first one. But the only numbers we have is 585,000 Jewish men died in battle, who were killed in battle alone, but doesn't count the civilian population at the end of the Bar Kokhba revolt. But he tells of 985 villages or towns that was sacked and 50 fortresses. Basically, they were fortified cities. Archaeologists teach us that those numbers that Cassius Dio recorded are apparently trustworthy. The Middle War, which was 115-117 AD, was kind of actually minor skirmish compared to the First and the Third War. But what was interesting is that in the Third War, in which Israel lost the nation, the Romans were inflicted on heavy casualties. They lost three legions. The 22nd Legion got completely destroyed, completely wiped out, and both the First and Third Jewish War were very similar in the fact that the Jews had early success and then got cremated in the end when reinforcements came. So eventually the Jewish people fought 12 Roman legions in 132 to 135, but in the sacking of the temple in 70 AD, and then also they have been digging now, and they're finding coins, they're finding pottery that attributes to both First and Second Temple, which gives the Jewish people more evidence that their temples existed, and of course are saying that they need their temple back. So the next temple will not be a good thing. And I'll tell you the reason why, in my opinion, why it's not a good thing. It'll deceive many Christians in going back into the law. There's no purpose for a temple. There's no purpose. The only purpose I can see is the Antichrist is going to declare himself God. Once the law is reestablished again, then it's a direct attack against grace. It's an attack against the law of grace and what Christ did at Calvary's cross. We can't go back to the law. That's what the whole book of Hebrews is about. That is about not going going back to the law, not being tempted to go back to the law. And that's exactly what's going to happen. Once the third temple, all over denominations, there's denominations that are going back to the law. They're going back to the law, trying to keep some sort of a law. And when the temple's built, I'll guarantee you, prominent Christians all over the world will be heading to the temple, and to do what? To make sacrifices. Why would you make any sacrifices there? Because Christ is the focus and point of every temple instrument and every temple sacrifice in the temple. Everything about the temple points to Christ. All the sacrifices, all the instruments, everything that was done points to Christ. By Christians going back to the new temple and observing those sacrifices is basically trampling on the blood of Christ.
Isn't it prophesied in in Revelation about when the temple will be rebuilt for the Antichrist?
Yeah, in Daniel, actually, it says that he comes back in the middle of the Great Tribulation and declares himself to be God.
In the middle of it.
In the middle of the temple.
He'll start with his peace treaty, signing his peace treaty.
Okay, we'll get together later on.
Take it easy.
Huffington Post. There was an article in Huffington Post, August 9th, 2016. Speaking about Obama, does he deserve a third term? Obama is stupid. An acronym STUPID is supposed to stand for superhuman, tough, unequal, proactive, ingenuous, and a demigod. Okay? This is what the article says. What more can qualify a man as God? What more can qualify a man as God? A loving father to his children, best friend to his wife, a friend to his subordinates, a mentor to growing young men, hope to the hopeless, a vicar in his challenges, and most powerful man on earth, yet a simple man in all ways. You will forever live in the hearts of all as a God among men. This is from the Huffington Post.
Who wrote the article?
The guy is called
Tyler Durden.
And the article is about how we may not have another president. The Golf Channel, I reported this last Wednesday, that he said he's being forced out of office, and that he'd be elected a third term, which I'm not so sure is not true. Matter of fact, I almost guarantee it's true. If he could. They say he's being forced out on the Golf Channel. And
creates a war.
Well, here's the thing. There's basically 5 reasons why you can suspend the elections. 5 reasons. Epidemic, major national disaster, civil unrest in the streets,
Black Lives Matter,
a major war, and a major downturn in the economy, economic problems. So those are the 5 reasons how you can suspend elections. However, it gets a little bit more complicated because in September 11th of 2001, the attacks in New York, the New York judge suspended the primary elections. The elections were suspended. Also, in Superstorm Sandy, several states either postponed elections or restationed polling stations. Such actions by state constitutions and their provisions, a governor can use emergency powers to postpone an election, feasible under some extraordinary circumstance. Obama could direct the 18 Democratic state governors to jump on board and postpone the election. This is secondary, however, and probably would not be needed because Obama could just declare martial law and suspend elections.
I got a question to you about that. there's a gentleman that comes here often, and we'd spoken in times past about some news and theories, if you will, prospects. Anyway, he had informed me, he showed me this website. It looked legitimate, and its explanation was quite legit. But anyway, he explained to me and showed me that, and this was like a year ago. So way before the Black Lives Matter. Way before that. But anyway, so he showed me that in the future, the Black Lives Matter thing, he didn't actually come up and say that they would say that, but anyway, the black people, if you will, are getting afflicted by police officers. Okay? And so it's being shown more in the media.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he told me that this would continue to happen, and it was planned. It's a planned thing.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And he said that, and he showed me what, on the website or whatever, that it would get so bad that, the black nation would start rioting. And so that's already happened. I mean, that's just been going on.
Burned down Milwaukee.
It's been going on.
Yeah.
And he said that it would get so bad that before Obama's term is up, before the election voting, if you will, Obama would declare martial law. He was almost like saying that people have already prophesied, if you will.
Yeah.
But he said it was a theory that, he said that this is going to happen in the future.
Well, we've been talking about it on Wednesdays. Obama is angling for the next UN Secretary General's job. In December 31st, they have to make a decision on who's going to be the next Secretary General of the UN. Okay? The United States has just signed an agreement with the UN allowing 40,000 UN troops to patrol the streets in case of civil unrest. With more, that's just what they allow now. So Obama is angling for the job, and he's like the front runner for it. So technically, what would happen is that he could quit as president, and then Biden would be actually president. And what has been said is that this is the plan, is let Biden in there so that he wouldn't actually have to run for president, but that Obama could quit. First president ever quit as president. Yeah. And then he'd be Secretary General, and then Biden would be become the president of the nation.
President Biden.
So you can suspend the elections.
You could basically run it from the UN using a public leader.
Like Biden, which is Joe Biden is hardly in touch with reality. Yeah. So, he has some real issues. When you're in a debate and your own war in the Middle East that nobody knew about, that's pretty. But anyhow.
I just wanted to bring that up.
It's a legitimate.
Which makes me believe that Black Lives Matter was created by Obama. That's what I believe.
It's just the old. It's basically
because he acts like
who's that guy? Malcolm X. Just the old Malcolm X philosophy being put in a lawlessness to the degree that now it's so the Ku Klux Klan, they're kind of the they've been called the Black Ku Klux Klan.
It's the Illuminati thing where, order out of chaos. You have to create chaos in order to control
and justify
the nation.
Justify it.
And not only that, but get people to hand control of themselves over to you because of the chaos.
Right.
It's like right after 9/11 happened, they introduced the Homeland Security. And before that, America would have never stood for that. But because that happened, they said, we need this for your security, for your safety.
We entered the Spanish-American War because the Spanish blew up Maine and the USS Maine.
You're not sure that was by
no. Later on, they discovered it was not the Spanish that blew up Maine, but that was a rallying cry. Remember the Maine, okay? We got in World War I because of the sinking of the Lusitania, which we swore up and down was just full of just innocent women and children, but then they found out that it was full of guns and ammunition sending to the British to fight the Germans. World War II, Pearl Harbor. We knew way in advance. Matter of fact, I had a news story about this. Matter of fact, the actual Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor was laid out by an Air Force military man in the United States Army, the United States Air Force. He laid out a plan, and it wasn't to be published, but it was published in like the New York Times, and the Japanese read it and thought it was a good plan on how to attack America. And they used his plan to attack America. But besides that, they knew like weeks in advance that this was happening. What it is, remember the Pearl Harbor. That got us into World War II.
Wow.
Vietnam.
What was the real reason for World War II? It was because we were actually supplying materials to the German army. We were selling it to them, and they sunk some of our merchant ships.
Wow. That story of USS Minneapolis. Remember about the guys that float around the water for so many days, Well, anyway, the guy even in there said that they figured something was up because they were commanded to go out in the waters on the carriers, on the fleet, the battle. And so the carriers were out on the water. There was the battle guns that were stationed in Pearl Harbor. They said something was up because they said they never had that happen where they had to have maneuvers out in the waters like that, and then something was up. And so they were sent out there while Pearl Harbor was being attacked. So they said something was up.
Vietnam War started because of the Gulf of Tonkin incident. That's what got us into the Vietnam War fully. Turned out to be a hoax. The first time that we got into, remember, the first Kuwait War. If you remember, I don't know if you remember this, but there was testimony, and it looked like a Senate room, where they said that they were coming in, the Iraqis were coming in and bayoneting babies in hospitals. Well, that was actually not in the Senate. They rented a room. Well, it was in the Senate, but it wasn't an official Senate hearing. They rented a room, and it's the Kuwaiti government that put on that newscast, and none of those stories were true. But it got the United States involved in the first war with Iraq. That whole story about the bayoneting of babies, completely fabricated. The lady was not a nurse or worked in the hospital. She was actually the Kuwaiti American ambassador's daughter. Wow. These are all facts. But it got us all in war. But you see, God is reigning over all. It's like World War II. If we didn't have World War II, the Jewish people would still be prospering and flourishing all over Europe and over Asia and all over the world. But World War II forced them back to their land. It actually forced them back to the land. So even though millions of Jewish people died, it actually got them back to fulfill Bible prophecy. Because very few percentage of Jewish people even believe in anything. Most Jewish people don't believe in anything. They don't believe in God at all. It's like a single-digit percentage are fundamental Old Testament law Jews.
And the last nation to do that was Russia. Believe me.
The last 7 days. We'll be right back.